Imagine a geopolitical earthquake so sudden it literally rewrites the rules for global investors overnight. On May 5th, the United States abruptly announced the end of its Epic Fury military operations in Iran, shifting instantly from maximum pressure to a negotiated ceasefire. This wasn't just a military headline, folks. It was a massive shockwave hitting global supply chains.
So we have to ask, did the global power structure quietly shift on May 5th? For decades, global trade relied on just one superpower to dictate the endpoints of conflicts. But suddenly, that absolute control just vanished. So who actually sets the rules now?
And hey, the shockwaves weren't just in the desert. Look at this number, 0%. In a flash, one of the most dominant tech giants on the planet, Nvidia, saw its previously massive market share in the Chinese AI chip market crash toward absolute zero. How are these two dramatic events connected? We're going to break it all down.
Know China to do better business. Save time and money with expert insights on China trade and investment. Welcome to Trade with China.
Today, we are looking at the move from unilateral control to multipolar negotiation. Understanding this shift is absolutely crucial to safeguarding your assets.
Section 1. The Middle East Pivot, Redrawing the Map. Let's look at how this actually played out. Back in February 2026, the U.S. launched the Epic Fury strikes, aiming for a swift resolution. But by April, things had totally devolved into asymmetric warfare and blockades. Then came the critical turning point, May 5th. The U.S. agreed to review a three-stage ceasefire proposed by Tehran, which was brokered by third-party nations like Pakistan. Basically, the era of a quick, unilaterally dictated endpoint stalled out into a high-cost war of attrition. So, here's the absolute core of this. Global security now relies on a multilateral consensus, not unilateral endpoints. Our sources show that exiting this conflict requires collective decision-making. It takes coordination among regional powers. For you as an investor, this means the stability of your global energy and trade routes now requires active management by a diverse committee of nations. Which brings us to a massive open question. If military leverage is shifting this much and forcing all these new alliances, what happens when that exact same dynamic hits the global tech supply chain?
Section 2. The tech supply chain crash, Nvidia's lesson.
Before the recent export controls, Nvidia commanded an overwhelming 95% of the high-end AI chip market in China. But wow, has that reality flipped entirely? Local replacements have scaled up incredibly fast, effectively capturing the vast majority of the market. Foreign brands? They've plummeted to near zero. And you don't have to take our word for it. Just look at this direct quote from Nvidia's own investor guidance. Assuming the China market is zero, when a dominant global player literally has to write off one of its biggest historical markets, it signals a massive structural failure in the strategy of single-nation technological containment.
So why did this happen so fast? Well, here is exactly why this blockade accelerated competition. First, strict export controls immediately cut off the initial supply. To counter that, domestic antitrust and security reviews kicked in. That created a massive vacuum, triggering the rapid rise of native AI server infrastructure. At the end of the day, unilateral sanctions aggressively forced local innovation. They built a fully independent ecosystem almost overnight.
The clear takeaway here for global investors is this. Single-nation tech blockades activate dynamic, alternative supply chains. Relying on the advantage of just one country is a super fragile bet right now.
Section 3. The new negotiation table, policy and trade. Notice the profound shift in the United States' own trade posture. The previous policy was all about comprehensive decoupling and maximum tariffs. But the current trend, it's much softer. It is aimed at stabilizing critical supply chains and managing risk. Facing the reality of long-term reliance on external sources for things like rare earths, the U.S. strategy shifted from total containment straight to pragmatic communication. We're seeing this multipolar approach solidify elsewhere too. Take the recent visit of Iranian leadership to Beijing. The sources emphasize this wasn't just about selling oil. It was about securing a multidimensional partnership. They are actively building long-term strategic alignment, coordinating on security and energy, deeply integrating infrastructure, and building financial channels that totally bypass unilateral isolation.
This all points to the rise of the multilateral negotiation mechanism. Think of this as a global framework, where conflict resolution and economic stability are achieved through the balanced coordination of multiple regional powers. It's the new operational standard. Capitals like Washington, Beijing, Tehran, they all have to collectively negotiate the terms of global trade and security. Power is now completely distributed.
Section 4. Strategic Playbook for Global Investors. Let's put the past and present side by side. For security, we moved from a single nation dictating conflict endpoints to regional powers dictating negotiated stability. For supply chains, we shifted from environments shaped entirely by unilateral sanctions to accelerated local substitution and resilience. And in trade policy, the shift is from total containment right over to pragmatic communication and shared reliance. Based on all this, here are 3 concrete steps you need to take. Step 1, upgrade your risk perception. Recognize that the rules are now written by multiple actors simultaneously. Step 2, adopt long-term cooperation. Treat global markets and alternative tech ecosystems as permanent structural variables. And step 3, diversify your global layout. Aggressively spread your commercial and technological reliance across multiple regions to protect yourself. Master the multipolar layout to secure your long-term investments. Adapting to this new multilateral trade environment isn't just an option anymore, it's a fundamental requirement for risk management and future profitability. This channel will bring you practical knowledge to navigate business, investment, culture, economic trends, and communication tips in trades with China. Your comments really encourage us to realize our explainers' value and update more useful information. Please press like, subscribe now for actionable insights and win-win solutions, not to miss the possibility to understand and make money in trades with China. We'll leave you with this final thought to consider. As the era of unilateral control fades into history, how will you strategically adapt your global supply chain layout to thrive in this new multipolar era? Let us know down below. See you next time.